Hello, folks. If you are hearing or seeing me before the start of a podcast episode, it means one of two things. One, I had to cut the cold open, and two, we had some technical difficulties. Dan prepared an amazing audio-based trivia competition for us in this episode, and unfortunately, we had some technical issues that prevented that from recording properly, and that's all on me. So I apologize for that to Dan, but also to everybody else. So while I introduce a trivia section at the start of the episode, please know that, unfortunately, it was cut at the end. But we'll make sure to have some awesome kick-ass trivia for you next month. Here's this month's episode. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Level 30 Games podcast for the month of June 2025. This is episode 306, and we want to welcome everyone to our lovely show today. I would like to welcome our lovely panel who is joining us today. Drew, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I have my game of the year. We'll get to that later.
Oh, snap. Joe, thank you for being here as well.
Thanks for having me. I don't have a game of the year.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I'm the game of the year. It's me.
Joe is game of the year. Confirmed. And Dan, well, you're just here, but thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We got a great show today. I don't know if you know this or not, but since the last time you watched and or listened, a little console by the name of the Nintendo Switch 2 has released, and we wanted to share some thoughts on it. We'll talk a little bit about the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct that came out just a couple days ago. We got a couple of conversation topics for you in regards to some, believe it or not, some next-gen console watch stuff. And Dan is going to bestow upon us some challenging trivia, which I'm told this time around is entirely audio-based, which will either be a disaster or the greatest thing ever. There is no in between. So let's jump right into our headliner for the day, which is, for the most of us at least, 75% of us at least, getting our hands on the Switch 2. Dan, I hope you have some questions ready for us later. You're going to play the everyman who maybe didn't have a chance to pick up a system at launch.
Nintendo? What's that?
Ask us, hopefully, questions that are better than that one in regards to the hardware or software or anything that we may have experienced if you're wondering how it works, etc. So let's just kind of roundtable some initial impressions here. After Nintendo, in the first 4 days sold 3.5 million consoles, making it the largest console launch in their history, we managed to get ours, take it out of the box, set it up, and dive right in. And I'm just kind of curious, Drew, initial impressions with the hardware. What do you think?
With the hardware, as soon as I took it out of the box, it felt infinitely better than the Nintendo Switch 1.
Made it really hard to go back to the Switch 1, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's...
Which is such a spoiled thing to say, but sorry, go ahead.
The plastic that they made it from, or the matte finishing, but it feels so much better in hands. And I have small hands, I know... With you like a bigger, controller, and the controllers are slightly bigger, but for whatever reason, the size of the screen, the controls, everything feels like they did their due diligence.
Yeah, they seem to take a lot of pride in their hardware decisions this time around, as they put kind of the developers and designers of the actual hardware front and center during their direct to talk about it, because obviously they feel like they did a really good job. And I would agree with you. It does feel pretty premium in hands. Joe, you got yours a couple days after we did. What were your first thoughts?
Pretty much the same. It feels super solid. It feels more comfortable. It's not quite as not that the Switch 1 was rickety, but it makes it feel rickety. The hardware's super nice. The turning it on, even the screen is beautiful to look at. I don't know. It doesn't have the I feel like it doesn't have the Nintendo charm that the first one has. But I'd say the build quality is so much higher up there that it kind of makes up for that.
Yeah, the build quality is definitely outstanding. And that charm is a little bit more subdued, I think. You lose something not having bright and colorful Joy-Con on either end. You have the colored accents on the joysticks and the inside of the Joy-Cons, which I think I've only actually taken off the system 3 times. But man, Drew, you were complaining the other day about how your Joy-Con rails on your Switch 1 might have bit the bullet or bit the dust, and I mean comparatively, it's no competition, right?
Yeah, when I think when I opened it in front of you and like took it out of the magnet and snapped it back in, it was just like, this is the most satisfying sound and aesthetic, like, of removing.
Yes, Drew released a sound that is typically reserved for very intimate things. When he took the Joy-Con on and off.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
That soundbite will come later. Oh.
Oh boy! All right. It feels really, really good. And you're right. As someone that has bigger hands, I really do appreciate the longer Joy-Con. Although, what I have noticed in playing handheld a little bit more frequently around the house, because I'm playing Dragon Quest III, the HD remake, which is for whatever reason feels like a very comfy, cozy couch handheld game. I'm noticing that because of the L and R buttons, they actually wrap further down the Joy-Con than they used to. I do accidentally press them, and thankfully they don't do anything catastrophic. Like in the game, it brings up a menu for quick actions, which I just cancel out of. But I've noticed I've been hitting them a little bit more. So I'm going to be curious over the duration of the console's life cycle. Is this going to be a colossal pain in the butt? Am I accidentally button pressing in a game where it's a little bit more detrimental? And is that going to be an annoying factor? So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, everything's bigger on the Joy-Con. The buttons feel better. The Joy-Cons, the joysticks themselves are just very smooth. And that D-pad on the Pro Controller, at least, is miles above. We'll talk a little bit. Joe, did you get the Pro Controller as well?
No, I didn't. I'm making it a point to not buy it.
Despite the fact that you now have to get up off the couch to turn on the system. Yes, if you didn't know, the Switch 2 Pro Controller obviously functions the same as the Switch 1, but the Switch 1 Pro Controller, while it will work with the system, does not allow you to boot up the system remotely, which I honestly just believe is a Nintendo move to get us to buy another Pro Controller.
100%. There's no way they couldn't not make that work. But I keep my I don't keep my Pro Controller on the couch anyway, so I have to get up to get the controller. So I just grab the controller, hit the power button on the Switch, and then go sit down. All
right. So
angrily.
how long? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. I would argue that the best thing that Nintendo ever did was on the Wii U controller. You could actually turn on the TV and change the channel and volume from your Wii U controller. That was a game
really
changer.
cool.
You can change the input. So even if you wanted to like go back and forth from another system, you still smart move, Nintendo.
It was RF.
Yeah.
It is possible.
It was RF built into the remote, right?
Yeah, it was just like a universal remote just built into the gamepad.
Yeah, and Nintendo does seem to be obviously on the forefront in their controller technology. I mean, the Wavebird was the first party officially licensed wireless controller that came out for the GameCube. Unless you wanted like a third party Mad Catz piece of crap that was just really awful.
Nobody wanted that.
No, nobody wanted that. That's why it was relegated to the younger brother.
Yep.
But yeah, all right. So what's the over/under on Joe caving and eventually buying a Pro Controller?
I say he gets there by the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say. I want to say, if Joe, is Metroid on your list?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say by the time Metroid comes out, you're going to want a Pro Controller.
What I'm holding out for is one of the one of the custom ones or something, like one of the game edition ones, something other than just the plain black one. That would get me to buy it. But right now, just buying the same exact controller just to get a wake from sleep button is just not working for me. But you give me a little Zelda swirly on it or something, and I'll shell out $85 for it.
That's fair, because we know you're not going to wait on a price drop for him.
That would be silly.
That'll just never happen. All right, well then, when you get the brand new Zelda Pro Controller, I'll be hyper jealous and then just buy one anyway. So, setup process was pretty simple for me across the board. Did any of you guys have trouble doing a system transfer? I know, Drew, you did yours here, so I think I think that went smoothly. Joe, did you opt for a system transfer, or did you start fresh with your hardware?
Yeah, I did a transfer, and it was pretty flawless. I was impressed considering we were talking about this the other day, the way Nintendo used to handle downloading screenshots from the console. I figured it was going to be something very similar to that, but they automate a lot of it. It went really well.
All right, well, you know what? That actually leads to a new talking point, which is probably more interesting than moving files from one system to another. So Nintendo has this way to kind of, I don't know, be a trailblazer in some regards, but at the same time also lag behind in very obvious ways. Like their online infrastructure is not super great. Friend codes is kind of just a cumbersome way to do stuff. So it feels really silly to say. And Drew, we were playing Mario Kart like literally on the couch, and I was like, Drew, you want to see a game changer right now? Send that picture to your smart device. And Dan, you send me clips. Like Dan and I will be playing Warzone and something funny will happen. Like Dan will just start laughing. And then within 5 seconds, I get a text message with a video clip from his game footage that he sent from his Xbox. Nintendo, it would be like a month-long process in order to get that to happen. But nope, if you go into the Nintendo app, you can upload photos right to it. They're on your smartphone. You can send them right from the app to in a text message. You can download them to your device. This is not a revolutionary thing, but it feels so good to finally be able to do that on a piece of Nintendo hardware where I'm a little bit more inclined to just share silly screenshots or video clips. And I think that's that Nintendo level of, I don't want to say magic because it's not, but like they took their time getting there, but at least it feels good to do.
Have you sent a video from your device to your phone?
I actually haven't sent any video clips yet. Have you tried it? Is there any issue between that and a photo?
I'm wondering how long it takes, that's all. Because the photos we took in Mario Kart were just, like, came within seconds. Yeah, like you said,
much instantaneous.
Not revolutionary, but very nice to be, like, able to share little nuances of games or something you might find, or just, like, some funny quotes. Like, when Paper Mario came back in the day, I would always screenshot, because Toad would always be in some, like, relaxing position, like, on a beach chair, and there would be a bit blank text box, and then I'd always want to, like, cartoon it and put in my own chat.
It's true. And you know what? Shout out to Toad for being one of the most animated characters while also not having pupils. I feel like it's a really, it's a really big win for him. So speaking of some things that are late to the table that I would argue, at least for me personally, was kind of a little less thrilled with initially, and that's game chat. Drew and Joe, we've all had an opportunity to kind of test this out, and I mean, look, it's voice chat. Like we're on a Discord right now. Like this is again not anything new, but there was something really kind of simple but clean and elegant about the process that just made it. I think it's a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. Joe, we've only done it briefly, but like I don't know, thoughts on that? Was that as much I don't want to say a marvel, but was that kind of as nice a feature or more nice than you thought it was going to be when they first announced it?
I don't know what my expectations were when they first announced it, but I am surprised and impressed that it works so smoothly. Not that I thought like the quality would be bad or anything. I just you press the button, you join the call, and you're in the call, and then you don't have to like, oh, let me set up my microphone, grab my headset, whatever. Like it just works. You can just talk across the room to your Switch. You don't have to worry about getting your stuff set up beforehand. It was a generally pretty smooth process. And I don't know, I can appreciate that like you get something and it just works out of the box. Even if it doesn't work, even if you can add accessories and you can add the webcam later, you can get a better microphone later, even if you have to do that to get like a good call, at least you can take it out of the box, start up a game, and be in a call within 10 minutes, and not have to be like, oh no, my headset didn't show up yet, I'm still waiting for them to deliver that. Like, you can use it right away, which was very nice.
Yeah, it's weird that on the PlayStation 5, the controller has a microphone and a speaker, so you can, just chat without needing to have anything plugged in. And I found that such an annoying thing that I turn off because it's on by default for some reason. And yet, Drew, we entered a game chat the other day and we were like shouting across the room. I think the microphone built into the hardware just like takes down a very small barrier. Obviously, your hardcore gamer is going to have a headset with a microphone they can talk into, but I think just the accessibility, like Joe, you said, it's there out of the box. It might not be the most perfect solution, but it's definitely strong enough to work. And I think there was something to be said, Drew, about just we were all playing Mario Kart together and hearing you come through the TV and being able to kind of shout back like we would as if you were on the couch was kind of a cool thing.
Well, I plugged in a headset to the Pro controller, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it sounded better. Like, we'll have to test out. But yeah, when I think originally the first time that we game chatted, I was using the Switch's internal microphone, and even it being about 6 feet away from me and the TV, like it picked it up. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Joe was on his system. We had myself and my partner here, and Dan is someone who very frequently complains that when we're playing games online, you're like, oh, you have your fan on because you can hear the fan blowing into stuff. The Switch did a really good job at kind of isolating sounds from across the room. So I know it was kind of silly when they had their demo of the roommate who's blending something in the background being canceled. Like, I guess that was a little bit more realistic than we all kind of initially thought. And so far has been just a really cool aspect to the system that I didn't anticipate liking as much right out of the gate. And I think will definitely be fun to utilize down the line, especially, I don't know, hooking a camera into it or just kind of being able to do it a little bit more casually. I like the idea of I'm playing my game, but I can see what my friends are doing on their screen, even if it is at like 10 frames a second, which was really, really kind of cool. That's a ton of praise. I'm just kind of curious, and we'll hear from Dan in just a second. But Joe and Drew, is there anything that kind of jumps out to you as something where you're like, hey, this I don't really care for this. I don't really like this, or maybe something that you see as a potential long-term issue? We'll start with Joe.
I still wish there were more games I wanted to play at launch. I kept digging for games, hoping there was something that I missed, and there really wasn't anything that like really interested me or felt like I needed to go pick it up right away. And ended up when the initial novelty of Mario Kart wore off, I ended up picking up an indie game for the first Switch to play on it, which has been a lot of fun, and it's comfortable to play on like handheld because the screen's so much larger. But right now, like, there's nothing that's really pulling me back to it other than Mario Kart, and that's that's not a game that like you can play that for 3-4 hours in a day, but playing by yourself isn't super fun after too long. It's not a game that I'm really gonna sink into. So that's my biggest gripe right now. Like, so far everything else, it's been a smooth experience to set it up, to use it. It's beautiful to hold and to look at. Outside of like what you said with the shoulder buttons, which catches me every once in a while too. But really, it's the both the first and third party support at launch were the worst.
All right, well, you gave me a lot of things to segue from, but I'm going to resist and go to Drew real quick. Any cons for the hardware that you'd look at and go, yeah, not a fan, wish they did better?
The only thing I would have liked was there was some concept art for the Joy-Cons when they were trying to like be like, this is the next system, that the D-pad and the analog stick were just a little bit further, because I still dislike using Mario Kart and my thumbs are literally side by side. Like, I would like them to be close, further apart, like a Super Nintendo controller or a Nintendo controller. Yeah, I could use them instead, but I still would like the Joy-Con itself to be that way.
Yeah, especially since there's a lot more empty real estate on the Joy-Con now that they're a little bit longer. But if you do actually think, like, all right, if you move your thumb down to where you feel like you'd want it to be, it would be really uncomfortable to play handheld. So obviously that was the primary design philosophy, was handheld first, 2-player, I guess, secondary. So like it functions obviously, but it's not good for long term. No, you're right there. I for me, at least right now, battery life is not super stellar, and I guess that's to be expected with beefier hardware. But even playing an older remastered game, I can get like an hour and a half, 2 hours out of it. But I couldn't imagine playing Mario Kart for like more than 90 minutes maybe without it starting to drain pretty heavy and be on its last licks. So I that's just one of those things you kind of have to live with and you accept when you buy it, that yes, I can play on the go, but not for very long depending on the game.
Tom,
Drew, you got something like...
Yeah. Have you used the game upgrades for anything from Nintendo Switch 1? Or Joe?
So I haven't. I downloaded the Tears of the Kingdom upgrade because I just wanted to see how it ran, but I also know if I start playing that game, I might not stop for a while, and I'm really trying to chug through some backlog before I get into that. But there's a world in which when the summer hits and I want a 3D adventure action game, I'm probably going to go into that.
And Joe, you haven't used the upgrade at all?
No, not yet. I kind of did the same thing. I downloaded the Zelda ones, but haven't played them yet. I haven't played them yet. Just waiting for the chance to, like, probably when I finish the game that I'm working on now. I'm working through The Last Campfire. When I finish that, I'll probably jump into one of the Zelda games. But I know the same thing. I'm probably gonna get pulled in for quite some time. But maybe now that, like I said before, there's not really any launch games that interested me too much. Maybe now's the time to get sucked into something like that.
I'm okay with the launch titles not being too many. Like, I think Mario Kart's very feasible in small bursts. Like, you do a Grand Prix and then put it down. But I'm okay having like a game come out once a month for right now that's a AAA title, because you have all these other systems and all these other games that are out. Like, if you're always going back to Warzone, like, that can be the intermediary. Mine is a game on PS5, and then like Tom said, we're both going through Dragon Quest 3. So there's plenty of things to play outside of the new system, or just play it on the new system like you were doing.
True. And we'll talk a little bit about where those games are at in a second. I don't want to leave Dan too far in the shadows here. Dan, as the sole person who, with conviction, respectfully, said, I don't need this system right now. No, I'm not going to get it. I think Joe succumbed to FOMO a little bit, or a lot of bit. I felt that way, Joe. You were like, I don't really want this thing. I fell asleep trying to pre-order it. And then as soon as that thing came out, you were like, I need it.
I mean, I was trying to pre-order it, though. I fell asleep because Target's website sucks.
Well, you should have injected yourself with illicit substances like we all did so that we can get our own. Dan,
what was I thinking?
I know, it's a shame. As the sole holdout, is there anything, I mean, I don't think we can say anything that's going to make you go, dang, I really want this thing. But do you have any questions from, I guess, like an outsider perspective as to what you might be curious about, or what someone who is on the fence about buying this thing might want to know?
You gave me, actually, a lot of y'all talked about a lot of the things I had questions about, specifically like tech issues and or sort of buyer's remorse or buyer's regret. I'm curious about the like the handheld mouse situation. I hadn't heard anybody mention that. Did anyone try that?
I have not had I don't have a game that supports it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an opportunity to yet.
Interesting.
Yeah,
unless you wanted to buy the $10 pack-in game that...
Absolutely not.
100%.
Yeah.
But now I'm interested. I'm going to grab my Switch.
But like Joe was talking about earlier with the Pro Controller, right? Like, when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, I might not use a Pro Controller. I might try the mouse controls.
Oh, I'll definitely try it because it's baked into the game, and I would like to see what an FPS kind of does with Nintendo Joy-Con mouse, but I have a feeling I'll gravitate back towards the Pro Controller.
For sure.
In the grand scheme of things.
Oh my god.
Go ahead, Joe.
If you take the controller, the right Joy-Con off, right? You put it down on a flat surface and move it around, like on the menu, you get a cursor.
Yeah.
And you can click stuff and you can scroll.
Does it?
Okay, bye, Joe.
Does this?
Yep.
For real. This is.
It's the.
I have nothing to play, but that's pretty cool.
Is the cursor
Discovered
speed
in real
good?
time.
What's that?
Is the cursor speed good?
Yeah, it seems I'd say it's a little slow for like more like heavier gamers or heavier like normal mouse users. It's probably a little slow for them, but for people who usually use a controller, you want the slower speed because otherwise you're just gonna be
No, you don't.
throwing your mouse all over the place.
Crank
So
Warzone's
That's right.
horizontal to
Be a
like
sweat.
9.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sure there will be individual settings in the games themselves. I know Cyberpunk has a pretty robust control configuration setup. Dan, it looked like you had another question ready to go.
I didn't have a question. I have a comment. I'm wondering if you all could speak to it.
We can.
I don't know if my feelings on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have been fully made public, but my analogy is that Switch 1 is Breath of the Wild and Switch 2 is Tears of the Kingdom.
I would say that's a pretty strong analogy.
But you don't like Tears of the Kingdom as much.
Dan doesn't.
I think Breath of the Wild was a better game.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I think
This is its
Tears
own
of the
podcast episode.
I think Tears of the Kingdom is far superior in every single way.
Well, yeah, but
I will say that.
You couldn't live
But the
without
novelty-
the original.
But all it made me want to do is be like, wow, this first game was great. And there's new bells and whistles, and that's awesome. But the innovation of the first system was what put it on the map. And the second's like, okay, cool. I'll go around again.
No, I think it's a really strong analogy in regards to the hardware, the tech components. Like, obviously, everything is improved.
Right.
But there is a level of kind of sameness, I suppose. I mean, we still have only 2 themes to select from, either black or white. So I guess if you used one last generation, you can switch to the other one. But it kind of has that feel when you get like a new phone and you're kind of like, okay, it's better in almost every way, but it kind of functions the same. And so the immediate like joy you have, like, oh, I have this new thing, because it feels so familiar, it does lose a little bit of that shine a little bit quicker. And I think the one shot in the arm you give it is software, and we're a little light on that right now. So I do think it's improved. I can totally understand folks that would say, I don't really need that right now. We've got the Switch at home, and yeah, okay, until there's that compelling reason to pick it up, I can understand folks not wanting to jump on board right away.
Do you think Tears of the Kingdom was planned for Switch 2 and they got desperate to release it early?
It's a great
I feel like there was too much time.
That is a good question. I didn't expect it, so I don't have an answer. Other than to say, I do think they probably looked at the engine that they made for Breath of the Wild and said, we spent a lot of time developing this. We need to use it again. You know, similar to the Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask parallel, where it's like, hey, we have all these assets. Let's see what we can do with them to kind of speed up development time. But remember also that Breath of the Wild was in development for the Wii U probably 4 or 5 years before it came out at all, right? So I don't think they rushed it. I just think, you know, it's Nintendo. They had to make technical compromises. So to say it runs at a sub 30 frame per second in certain aspects was probably the concession they were willing to make. And I would argue that game still is gorgeous, and I didn't have an issue with the frame rate at all. So, you know, is playing it at 60 frames going to make me feel like it's a brand new game? No. But we'll see if it's enough to convince me to play it again. I don't think the tech specs would. I think the fact that it's just an amazing game would get me to play it again. It's just really hard to play games that are 150 hours long more than once. So
GameCube released with Wind Waker, or was around whenever, like a year or 2 in. And then at the end of the life cycle was Twilight Princess, which was also on Wii U. Or Wii, sorry. Was that built for Wii, or was that built for GameCube?
Oh, I think it was built for GameCube originally, and then they needed a game at launch that wasn't Wii Sports, especially since Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president of Nintendo of America at the time, had to really hard sell Iwata to include Wii Sports as a pack-in. That was originally going to be a standalone title, and I think they probably said, okay, well, then we need a heavy hitter here, and they came out with Zelda. They did kind of have to tweak the entire game, though, right? Because I guess Link was originally left-handed, and so when they realized that, okay, well, 90% of the world is right-handed, they basically took the game and just mirrored it so that Link's sword was in his right hand to kind of better, or I should say, more likely represent the folks that were playing and waggling with their right hand versus the left. So, I don't know.
They could have trained an entire generation of kids to be ambidextrous, but no.
Missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, and it's funny because the mouse controls in the Switch 2 are only in the right Joy-Con, correct?
No, I just checked. They're in
It's
both.
in both?
built in
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was just one.
I thought it was too, and then I just grabbed the left side, and it did the same thing. So yeah, you can use both.
Okay. Dan, any other lingering questions or thoughts you might have for the Switch 2 owners here?
No, my only other thought is about Donkey Kong, and that might be a next question for us all. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I do want to get into kind of, as Joe had mentioned earlier, some of the light game options, but obviously the big one at launch was Mario Kart, and we've all sunk at least a decent chunk of time into it. Drew, I know you were kind of probably more enamored than we were initially. Is this game resonating with you in a serious way?
I think it's because as big of a fan of Nintendo I am, I should be ashamed that I hardly played Mario Kart 8. So, I skipped out on all the people loving to play as Link and Animal Crossing characters and, whatever they want. So, it's been a while. Mario Kart 8 came out on what originally? Wii?
Came out in the Wii U.
Wii U.
Okay.
In 2014, I think.
So did the Wii have a Mario Kart?
Yes.
Which was
It's just called Mario Kart Wii.
Oh. I don't even remember playing. Oh, I remember that because of the
had the controller.
Yeah.
Came with the steering wheel. Yep.
So I think
Oh god, yeah.
that's why it's resonating with me more, is because I've been apart from Mario Kart for a long time, and 64 and Double Dash were just so exciting that you heard it over game chat the other day. I was just free roaming while we're waiting for the next race, and just having this childlike nostalgia of little things. It was just so much fun. I enjoy free roaming more than I probably enjoy racing.
And we enjoyed hearing all the sounds you were making as you were free roaming, because it was just pure joy, unfiltered.
It really was.
Which was really charming to hear. Joe, how about you? Have you sunk any time in with this?
Yeah, I've put a pretty decent amount of hours into the game already. I think it's excellent. I think it's a beautiful game. It looks super pretty. The free roam it's cool. It's fun to play around with. To drive, you can go between all of the tracks without loading screens or anything. It's overall, I think everybody's agreed on this. It's overall a more difficult game.
Oh, yeah.
So even playing last night, and we put the CPU difficulty on normal and got wrecked on a lot of the races, which was surprising because coming from 8, where I would within the first minute I end up in first place and then I stay there for the rest of the race. So. I think the game is awesome. Like I said, it's beautiful. The costumes for the different characters are cool. The only thing is, after playing for an hour, it's still Mario Kart. So you're still it's still racing. Even if it's not Mario Kart, it's still just a racing game. It's got the extra fun of being able to beat the hell out of other people with shells and stuff. But you are just driving through the tracks, and after an hour, you're like, all right, maybe I want to go do something else for a little bit, and we'll come back to this in 20 minutes.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's. I feel like I had a moment of maybe finally becoming an adult where I long for you're absolutely right. After 45 minutes to an hour, you feel like, okay, I'm kind of tired of racing, and yes, there are other modes, but I'm good. And then upon reflection, I'm like, okay, I know I want to be sucked into this game in a way where I want to sit down here and play for 3 or 4 hours. But who the hell has 3 or 4 hours to sit down and play anything anymore? So I kind of, my perspective changed when I realized okay, I'm not tired of Mario Kart. I can't play anymore, or I have to go to bed, or I have to, go food shop. There are other things to do. So I feel like that short little, I can squeeze in a Grand Prix before I go to bed. I actually appreciate a little bit more than I would say a Breath of the Wild game, where I lost a whole weekend not lost. I mean, I enjoyed, but like I sat down for like 8 hours on Saturday and then played that game for the first time just straight without getting off the couch. I kind of appreciate this. Hey, I can squeeze some things in, and it actually sometimes makes it a little bit more exciting because hey, I got 4 courses to do, and then I got to shut this thing off. Otherwise, I teeter into that I'm an irresponsible person territory, and that can't happen all the time. So I do kind of like about the game. I guess the grand question is before we move on, as we've been skirting some of the segment conversations, is in retrospect, it hasn't even been a month. Was this the right game to launch with, Drew?
I think so. It has online play, it has single player play, and people will go back to it for a while. Like, yeah, everyone wants the new Smash Brothers because it's been a while, right? But
2015, I think, 15 or 16.
Again, Mario Kart needed an update because we were milking 8 for far too long.
Yeah, and I agree. Even with the DLC tracks and stuff.
Milking because
Dan,
of the
any
moo
Mario
cow.
Kart question? Oh,
It's not a bad play to have a game, like to your point, I think people will continue to come back to Mario Kart the way that they did in Mario Kart 8. So I think it's not a bad play to get that in everybody's library first.
yeah.
And then that will sort of hold over in between these other game announcements. My question was, and Joe, you sort of spoke to it, but is it tedious going from race to race when you want to just race?
No, because you don't have to, like, you can drive between them in free roam, but doing like a Grand Prix is just like it was on the
Okay.
previous Mario Kart game. Yeah, it just...
No, it wasn't. No, it's not at all.
Because after the
Grand Prix
first
is-
one, which you do 3 laps of, you drive to the next race, and that's not
Oh.
laps. Well, it is laps, but not.
You do
So-
do 1 lap on the last one.
So after like you do actual laps, and then the later tracks are more like straight through. But I mean, going from one to the next, like you don't have to. It's not a separate section where you drive from one track to the next, but you do like 4 laps. You're racing the whole time. Is the point I'm getting at?
Okay.
From beginning to end, you are doing a race. There's not really a break where if you're playing online, then there's a break where you do free roam while everyone's kind of picking their course, or you're picking the rules or whatever. But when you do race 1, you do your 3 laps, and then you do race 2, it starts right after. It just doesn't start at a starting line. You're already moving at that point.
Okay. But the play is pretty continuous.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom
you'll
seems
still
like he
get-
disagrees with that.
Yeah, well, at the beginning, I was like, wait a minute, you're saying this is not correct, but you saved yourself at the end. Yeah, so when you finish the first section of the race, it's 3 laps on a course, and then it gives you here's your 1 through 24, here's how many points you get. And then the start of the next race, and it is technically a race, is, okay, from the finish line of the previous race track you just did, you have to drive to the next track. And then when you get there, you do 1 lap on that track to the finish line, and then it's the same until you get to the very end.
Okay.
But that's just the Grand Prix setup. If you wanted to do, hey, the 4 of us are going to play, and we want to do 3 laps on Rainbow Road, like we can set it up that way.
Okay. Because I think in open world structure, like it worked well with Breath of the Wild because it was supposed to be an open, barren world. It worked well in Grand Theft Auto because there's so much populating it that there's always stuff to do or get into while you're going between missions. And I'm sort of contrasting it, and not to go off on a tangent, but I'm playing Dynasty Warriors Origins now. If there are any Dynasty fans out there, and it is a traditional hack and slash, right? It's awesome when you're playing it, but there are at least 5 or 6 cinematics before every level. And it is just like, for a game where you want to just not think and press buttons, to make me watch 5 or 6, and they load every time, and it's slow. And so anyway, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like tedious, all of the in between the races, that there was always constant play.
Oh no, it's actually very constant. I mean, I would make an argument that those sections of the race are not the most interesting, but it doesn't mean that they're boring. It's not like you're all 24 characters are casually just driving in harmony. Like, no, it ends up being a little bit more chaotic because you have to, there's a lot more item usage. I mean, it's not uncommon to be like in first place and blue shelled like 6 times in a course because you're just constantly being barraged. That doesn't make it, I mean, it can make it frustrating, but it doesn't make it any less fun. There's a lot going on where I wouldn't say it's nuanced, but I think there's a lot more under the hood here than Nintendo puts out there. Like your vehicle stats, to me, it seem arbitrary. Like I'll pick the car with the fastest top speed, and I'm just holding down the gas, and like, why am I not catching up to the people in front of me? Like, there's a lot of hidden stats there too. So there is a lot going on. I get the concern that, oh, we're just driving to the next course. No, you're racing to the next course. It can be pretty exhilarating.
Cool.
So, and even the free roam I've come around on since it first came out. I really have been enjoying the photo mode and just trying to like make really cool epic pictures and stuff. And some of those question or the P block challenges are really hard. Drew, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, they are hard. I really like free roam. I just wish there was just a little bit more. Like, I'm equating it to like the GTA 3 of Mario Kart.
That's fair. I definitely appreciate it more than I enjoy playing it. I think there's a lot of nuanced stuff. Like if you take your time and drive around, you will find some really weird and cool stuff. Like Drew, you got abducted by a UFO.
I got to control it.
Just took over the ship, which is kind of awesome. I was watching a YouTube video of someone that just kind of like found a toad driving and followed it. And it doesn't like have a set course. It was just driving on the road and it would like go somewhere and park. And then he got out of the car and you're like, he got on a bus. I'm like, holy crap. Like, so there's a lot of stuff going on there that's fairly persistent. The one thing that I was just kind of bummed with in when we played collectively in free roam, I was like, oh, I just parked in the middle of the road to try and create a giant traffic jam. And there was like 20 some cars just waiting. And then I'm like, oh, Joe, drive by me, see if you can count how many cars there are. He goes, there's one. I'm like, So there's obviously some like network concessions that are made. Because on my screen, I was just holding up traffic for, I guess, forever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there that's kind of cool. But yeah, you're right. It does need a little bit more. I'm hoping that as a forever game, as a platform game especially, that they can fill that with some DLC and do some funky stuff there. So... yeah, I think we've all enjoyed our time, and we know that that's a game we'll revisit quite frequently as well. But it does raise the question, and Joe, you brought this up. Well, we've all kind of brought it up a little bit. We want to know where them games are at. Shrug, right? I picked up Bravely Default at launch. I haven't opened it yet, and I know it's sitting there waiting for me, and yet I am still like... I don't know, stupidly going like, oh, maybe one of the other games that just came out will somehow go on sale and be 50% off. And I know that's not going to happen. But my question to you guys is, and I want to start with Dan, is Nintendo at this point has to support both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, at least for the near future, right? What do you think their strategy is going to be in appeasing fans on the Switch 1 that haven't upgraded yet, while also creating new and bigger experiences for those folks that have?
Yeah, I think they'll run them both for the next year or two. I think until they'll start timing it with some price drops. But obviously, it's not smart business for them to just cut everything now, right? There's still a lot of people that use it and want to continue to use it. There's a lot of people that use the system who are either older or younger, right? So they're not going to go out and buy a new system just because. So I think, I think they'll run Switch 1 for at least a year or two in releasing those big games until sort of the same way they did with Wii and Wii U, where they had, I think Drew, you just mentioned like Twilight Princess released on both. It just makes sense to do that for a while, to have people playing the games until the games, sort of like what happened with Xbox S and X, where they will run Xbox One for a while, but the games are going to be continue to come out at a higher caliber, and they will just no longer work on the older systems, and so it's a more gradual process.
Yeah, I think my concern, I guess it's a selfish concern, is but like even with the PS5, you had a couple games at launch that were exclusive, of course, and then for the next like 2 or 3 years,
Nothing.
well, it wasn't nothing. It was here's the PS5 game. It's also out on PS4, which I can only imagine as a developer, you kind of hold back a little bit knowing that it has to work on both. So I like while you're waiting to really see the hardware shine, you're getting maybe slightly better versions of older games as opposed to we built this from the ground up. I don't know, Joe or Drew, do you have any thoughts on their strategy here?
I'm kind of expecting the same as like what you guys said, and the same as what we saw with like going from the Game Boy Advance to the DS, and from the DS to the 3DS, and 3DS to the Switch. Like they'll pretend like this is still a direct successor, as opposed to those generations where they were like, we're not getting rid of the Game Boy, the DS is just gonna live alongside it, and then it didn't. But I think they'll release games on both of them for a little while the Switch 1 can still kind of keep up and just try to push the extra performance or better features to the Switch 2. And then it'll just kind of taper off over, after a year or so, till it's just, getting some indie games and some updates and stuff like that. And realistically, like, they want to support the Switch 1 because people still have it. They want to make as much money out of it as they can, but they're also still going to have to push people to the Switch 2, and that's where their primary focus is going to be, and that's just it's just business.
Sure. Drew, do you have any thoughts on how they can manage both?
I'm more okay with a game a month, like a AAA title a month, because I pose all three of you a question: how many Switch cartridges do you own, or how many Switch games do you own?
Oh God, probably 150.
Your shelf is terrifying, Tom. Probably games in total, probably like 30.
And Dan?
Actual, I'd say like 8, maybe 6.
Oh,
6 to
really?
8.
Is it most of
I don't buy a
download?
lot
Or you just don't buy?
no, I just don't buy tons of games.
Well, for Joe and Tom, like, we all have backlog. Like, it's okay that you release Mario Kart World this month, and next month Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then a few months later Metroid Prime 4, because, like Tom said earlier, it's all about time management now as an adult. Like, you don't have enough time to be playing something indefinitely. I know. We would love to sink 70 to 100 hours into Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it takes a long time over time. And with Mario Kart,
It's coming to Switch 2, by the way.
with Mario Kart, you will put in probably 100 hours over the life cycle of it, and then just end up buying.
I think I
something
put in
else.
50.
Yeah,
I
already.
think I put in 50 on the Switch 1. No. On the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch 1, I think I put in like 50 hours.
Or if you're
I didn't do that much.
your guy's friend putting thousands of hours into Splatoon.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think he's up to like 3,700 hours in it or something.
I'm
And they
pretty
just
sure it
patched
stopped
for
counting.
Switch too. So,
course.
yeah. So it's interesting here because at some point Nintendo is going to have to say, okay, here's your next mainline Mario game, and it's not coming out on Switch 1, and suck it. Like, deal with it. Like, they're going to have to draw that line in the sand at some point. I do think that they have extreme competence as a company to understand the situation they're in is obviously a good one. But they're also really brilliant at nurturing and developing young developers to do and create new and exciting things. I mean, Splatoon was born from one of the youngest teams at Nintendo, and they kind of said, okay, like, we'll trust that you've got your finger on the pulse for what people are going to like in the age demographic that you're targeting to hit. We've been making Mario games for 40 years. So sure, squids and kids, and go for it. I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo kind of used this as an opportunity to allow some newer developers to kind of get their footing developing maybe games for the Switch 1 and allow them to get some practice under their belt before they, I don't know, graduate and move to a more high profile game. I had a theory about Zelda in that we've all been clamoring for the Wind Waker HD remake on Switch, and it it has not come and it might not ever come. However, I do believe it will come as a Switch 1 title, which obviously with backwards compatibility, sure, you can play it on the Switch too. I do think that Nintendo at some point is going to throw a bone to those Switch folks that are like, well, we can't play the GameCube games on the Switch, so here's Wind Waker remastered, and kind of use maybe HD ports or remakes as a training ground to allow some of those younger developers to cut their teeth a little bit. Because we do know in the last Direct, there were some titles that are coming out for Switch 1 and not until next year, right? I think Tamagotchi Life teased a 2026 release. So we're, at least 6 or 7 months away from that at all. And we'll have had this system for a large chunk of time, this new system for a large chunk of time. So I think it will support both. And to really quickly comment, Drew, I think maybe I'll pose it to everyone. Is expecting a one large AAA game per month seem a bit excessive to anyone? I feel like that is a huge, that's really hard to do.
Yeah, I think if you look at other older systems, the big titles that came out of it were maybe not games that always franchised and carried on. And Nintendo does have that catalog of franchises and characters that they could whip out a major, Kirby game, and then a major, just they could keep pulling from their pool of people, their characters, and people would buy it because now there are, you can play a Kirby in Super Smash, you can play Kirby in Mario Kart, you can play, the characters are taking on lives of their own, and you will buy a title because it says Donkey Kong, not because the actual game looks decent. I'm going to throw that out there as a foreshadowing to my opinion for Donkey Kong.
Okay, well let's talk about Donkey Kong, because I think you bring up a really good point here. Like, Donkey Kong has not had an original title in over a decade. It hasn't had a 3D title since Donkey Kong 64, which I think was just absolutely awful. I just think it's really, the peanut shooter or the bazooka. Like, they just gave all the gorillas guns for some reason. I think it's just, there's something kind of cool and impressive and just joyful about Nintendo kind of having this well of characters they can look at and say, all right, we have a concept for a game, who best fits it? Which is probably why we haven't seen anything Donkey Kong related in a long time. And then they pull this thing out, and holy crap, I think this game looks brilliant. Dan, I guess you have some other thoughts on that?
So what I love about this game, I think it is innovative. I like how they took the art style and they put it in, they moved the goalposts in the art style in a pretty solid direction, right? And I appreciate them not trying to just do more of the same. And I would say the same for the gameplay. I liked the component of being able to smash through floors and walls, a la Minecraft. I think that's really popular right now in world building and creating. But the actual story of the game, the premise of the game, there are these big golden bananas that you have to get. Is that going to motivate me to do it? I don't know. Are those villains other monkeys that are oddly corporate data theft monkey or whatever?
My favorite character, HR violation. Kong.
Let me ask you a question. If it wasn't Donkey Kong and it didn't say that, and it was not even Nintendo, would you buy that game? Probably not. It doesn't look good. I will buy it for nostalgia, for support, I'm sure there'll be so much fun. It looks like silly, which I really love. But the game itself, the story is not in any way compelling, which I think there are other Mario games where the story is better. And there are Mario games where it's pretty much this cut paste, and you're just eh.
I think the story is slightly more compelling. I mean, obviously it's a shell to, catapult your chaotic destruction, banana hunting, whatever. And it is funny because you introduce young Pauline. And so of course people are, for now, after 20, 30 years of
it's
not
prequel.
being, trying to figure out where the Donkey Kong timeline is. And I'm like, dude, it's it's Donkey Kong. However, I will give credit to Logan Plant, as a writer for IGN, made a declaration the other day, and I was like, oh shit, I agree with this, and I think he's 100% spot on. This game is totally going to end with Donkey Kong bringing Pauline to the surface, and they're going to say, thanks, Donkey Kong, you rescued Pauline. In honor of you, we're going to call this now New Donk City, and it's going to that's how that game ends. And I'm like, damn it, I can't argue with that. That's probably it is. And you know what? I don't care. That's great. Perfect. Love it.
It'd be stupid if it didn't turn out that way, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's so obvious it has to happen.
Look, you bring up an interesting point. If it wasn't Donkey Kong, would I care as much? I think I would if the character design was there. If it was like generic, I don't know, mine worker, I might not be as, interested in it, but that's the power of intellectual property, right? I mean, one of the games that was a launch title that not a single one of us have ever talked about is a game called Survival Kids, which is technically a remake, I think, of like a Capcom or Konami game from like the late 80s or early 90s for the NES, I believe. That game looks generic as hell. So I think conceptually, it's kind of cool. You got to forage and scavenge your way to get off this island, I guess, or survive it. But okay, so you take out generic characters and then you drop in gorillas and monkeys that are like have a history with, video. Like I think that does pull a little bit of weight. So if it wasn't Donkey Kong, would I play it? Probably not. So the IP is doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to draw us in. So I think it's working in that regard. But I can understand your tepid reaction to it. I just think it looks fun as hell.
And I love that. I really do. I like that they took the silliness of like the New Donk City and like the theme song that Pauline sang. And I love that they kept that stuff with it because I think everything is getting darker to be more serious. I mean, look at Zelda, right? And it's like, I like that they made it fun and bright and colorful. I don't know.
You mentioned the art style. Did you guys see the transformation part of the direct and you can turn into like a zebra and like run on the water? That zebra looks like it was ripped out of a Ren and Stimpy cartoon. I mean, it's like jacked and it's just got this goofy face and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. But I guess you guys are a little bit cooler on it than I am. Drew, what are your thoughts on this Donkey Kong bonanza?
So when they originally teased it, I was all in because I loved Donkey Kong 64, whatever controversial take on Tom's part. But now they revealed like part of the story where Pauline is there, and the gameplay is kind of changed because there's more to it than what I originally thought. I think it's hard to bring in new Kongs because, and to like them or dislike them or whatever because we're so engrossed in Rare and King K. Rool. Like, he was the perfect villain, or I enjoyed him in Donkey Kong. Like, why a crocodile and a gorilla are fighting, who knows, but it really...
Land and sea, baby, land and sea.
It made...
Mortal enemies since the dawn of time.
It made sense. And so with this game, like, I'm okay with these new Kongs. I'm glad that Diddy and Dixie are still there. I'm hoping other people surprise us. I mean, I'm still a little confused why a rock turned into Pauline, or why she became a rock in the first place. Maybe she's just a rock baby, and like that's why she sings music. I don't know, but
yes, all the connections are coming together.
I still will get it and bore my hole through the earth until I get to China in New Donk City.
So there's actually a theory that King K. Rool is in this game.
Oh.
I forget where I saw this. It was probably on Blue Sky or something. But technically, so they took a couple screenshots from this game and the title, and I think it was Donkey Kong Country 2. One of the Donkey Kong countries, 2 or 3, like the final level is the center of the earth, right? And you enter like a volcano. And so someone looked at the final map, to which you do your level select in Donkey Kong Country, notice that the colors emanating out of the volcano, taking you to the center of the earth to defeat King K. Rool, were green and pink. And if you look at the box art for Donkey Kong Bonanza, the underglow of the word Bonanza is in green and pink. So again, we're grasping at straws here, but there's a possibility that King K. Rool might actually appear as like the final villain or mastermind with your corporate executive Kongs that Dan so eloquently pointed out.
Isn't K. Rool in Super Smash?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no way he's not in the game.
I think it's a legal thing. I don't know if they own the rights to King K. Rool. I think it's owned by Rare, which is owned by Microsoft. So that would be that's why when they did new Donkey Kong Country, it was different. The Kremlins were gone. Like all those characters that I loved were gone. It was a legal thing.
Interesting.
I'm hearing pink and green. I'm hearing a Splatoon tie-in. Are we talking like a Nintendo collective universe here now?
Oh no. The center of the earth is just filled with squids.
Oh, it's definitely a different shade. It's more of like a neon pink and like a turquoise.
So we're close. I don't know. Again, wild fan theory and speculation, sure. Would I be surprised if it happened? No. Do I secretly hope it happens? Kind of, yeah. All right, well then I'll be the one to be way more excited for this game than you guys, but that's totally cool. I guess Joe doesn't like gorillas.
I don't. I'll say I love. Hang on. Total change the podcast subject here. I love ducks. No, I've actually never been much of a Donkey Kong fan. Not so much that I didn't like it, more is that not so much that I disliked it, more that I just never really got into it. But watching like the trailers and the direct for this game, it looks pretty awesome. And no offense, Dan, I didn't know that anybody ever played Donkey Kong for the story.
That's a very valid point.
What? I didn't think of it, but again, I've never really got into it. So maybe there's a whole group of, My Little Pony-esque weirdos.
I don't find that this gorilla wearing a tie has really compelling motivation for wanting that banana. I don't buy it.
Just too
Fair
much
point.
Suspension of disbelief.
Fair point.
But the game it does look like fun. I think it looks like a fun like open platformer, which I don't think I've played one that I've really loved in quite some time. So at the very least, I think that'll be enjoyable just to kind of run around and create havoc. I think it seems cool.
Yeah.
And that's coming from me, who's not really a fan of gorillas.
There you go. All right, well, that game is only a few short weeks away, and so we'll have it in our... Well, I'll have it in my hands. I guess you guys might do a wait and see, but that's a day one for me, so I'll let you know my thoughts maybe, or definitely, in the next episode that we do in July. All right, well, excellent round of trivia, folks. That's going to end up doing it for our show this month. Make sure you tune in for July's episode. Not only will Drew and I be venturing back from Japan to hopefully talk about our adventures there, we'll also make sure that we, have a bunch of other fun stuff planned for you. We'll talk about Donkey Kong. We'll talk about everything. We'll do it the way that we do it. Thank you guys for listening, for watching, for playing along. Thanks to the panel for being here today on what is a thunderous day outside right now. I'm surprised I haven't lost power. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the month, and we'll see you next episode. Adios.
You too.
Don't forget that both Joy-Cons can be used as a mouse.
And my game of the year is Clear Obscure.